Today, transgender remains one of the most debated topics in law and society. But in India, this conversation is not new. For centuries, people outside male female binary were not just visible, they were described, categorized, and integrated into society. So, what changed? Ancient Indian texts did not ignore gender diversity, they actually documented it. In Kama Sutra, there is a clear mention of Tritiya Prakriti, meaning third nature. It describes people who do not fit into male or female categories, even outlines their societal roles. Scholar Wendy Dornier notes that Kama Sutra discusses such identities without moral condemnation, treating them as part of social reality. Other texts also acknowledge variation beyond the binary. The Shushruta Samhita discusses how biological variation can lead to different type of sex development. The Manusmriti and Narasmriti refers to individuals who are neither strictly male or nor female in matters of classification and law. Scholars like Ruth Vanita argued that this shows a long historical continuity of gender diversity in Indian text. Even statecraft text shows awareness of such identities. The Arthashastra of Kautilya mentioned people outside typical gender roles in administrative and legal contexts. So this was not just visible, they were recognized. This recognition also appears in India's most influential the epic, the Mahabharata. Shikandi, born female but living as male, plays a decisive role in Bhishma's fall. Arjun lives at Brihanala during exile. These are not just minor details, they show that gender could be fluid in narrative and still meaningful in society. Scholar Devdutt Patnaik explained that such stories reflect symbolic acceptance of gender fluidity even if it wasn't socially fully acceptable or equal. This idea is also reflected symbolically. In Puranas, the form of Ardhanarishwar represents the merging of masculine and feminine into one being. So, the idea of gender in Indian thought was not always rigid, it could be layered and complex. Outside the text, transgender communities had a visible social presence. Historic- Historically, they were organized as communities with internal systems. They had roles in birth ceremonies, weddings, ritual performances. They were not outside society, they functioned within it. In medieval India, this presence did not remain limited to culture, it entered machinery of power. Inside the courts of Delhi Sultanate, individuals outside the traditional gender structure were not just present, they were positioned at points of trust. During the Delhi Sultanate period, they were appointed as royal guard, especially in highly sensitive spaces. They acted as court official, handling communication and internal administration. They became political intermediaries carrying messages between rulers and nobles. But this was not accidental. These roles required a very specific kind of person one who existed outside the usual structure of family lineage and inheritance. They had no dynastic ambition. They were seen as loyal to the throne, not to the clan. They could be trusted in spaces where others could not. In political system driven by alliances and betrayals, neutrality became the power. Malik Kafur rose from enslavement to become one of the most powerful generals of Delhi Sultanate, led large scale military campaigns to South India, managed logistics and expansion of the empire. His rise shows that under certain conditions, identity did not limit power, position did. But this must be understood clearly. This influence was not the reality of the entire community, it was concentrated in specific individuals within the state system. Under the Mughal Empire, the role became even more organized and more powerful. Here, transgender officials, often called as Khwaja Saras, were not just present in court. They were embedded within its structure. They controlled entry into imperial court. They managed access to Janana, the inner royal household, and in any empire, controlling access means controlling influence. Manage royal households, treasuries, and internal administration, acted as confidants of emperor and royal families, served as communication bridges between the private and political worlds. Some even held official court rank, land grants, position within system like Mansabdari structure. They existed between two worlds, the private life of the ruler and the public life of the empire. They could influence who got access to the emperor. They could shape court dynamics and decision making indirectly, not always visible but often decisive. No direct heirs reduced succession conflicts, no clan backing, less political threat. Their social position created trust, and that trust translated into authority. But once again, this must be understood with nuance. This level of influence belonged to specific individuals within imperial system, not the entire community. The biggest shift came during colonial rule. Under the British Raj, communities like Hijras were registered, monitored, and in some cases criminalized under laws like Criminal Tribe Act 1871. But this was not just about law, it was about mindset. A deeper change was taking place in how society defined what was normal. In pre colonial India, gender diversity was largely understood through social role, cultural practices, and lived realities. But Victorian era system brought a very different way of thinking. In the United Kingdom, during Victorian period, gender nonconformity was treated as legal issue. It was seen as moral problem that needed correction. Laws were used to regulate behavior, appearances, and identity. So instead of asking where someone fits in the society, the system began to ask whether they should exist outside strict definition at all. This approach was introduced into India through colonial governance, and with it came a fundamental shift. A society that once managed diversity through social systems was now redefining it through law, surveillance, and control. And this shift continues to shape modern thinking even today. In modern India, recognition began to return. In 2014, Supreme Court of India recognized transgender people as third gender. Later, legal protections were also introduced, but the debate continues with the new bill tabled at the parliament. India's history shows something important. Gender diversity was not absent. It was described, recognized, and placed within the society. Then it was restricted, and now it is being understood again. So the real question is not whether